From LA to Piscataway, you've come to the right place to talk all things Big Ten. Welcome to Big Ten Ted Live.
Hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to Big Ten Ted Live on a special Friday night edition of the show. Man, we got a lot to talk about tonight. We've got a lot to talk about tonight, so let's get it moving. Let's get it started. So here's how things are going to go tonight. We're going to react to Minnesota and Nebraska. Going to break that one down from a lot of different angles here this evening. We're going to bring in Kane Rob from Locked on Golden Gophers as well. Going to give you the Minnesota perspective here from that matchup last night. Some good old-fashioned Big Ten football. Let's just put it that way. Some Big Ten West football that we all know and love as well. And then we're going to be talking about the rest of these week one games as well. And kind of as we speak, as we're doing this live, if you're watching it back, it's obviously going to be a little bit different. I got Michigan State and Central Michigan on the phone right in front of me, and that one's pretty tight right now, so we'll be keeping an eye on that. Maybe the second half of the show, we're going to be doing a little maybe watch party type of thing, especially if this one continues to stay as close as it is. All right, so I want to cover a couple of things before we really get moving in the show here tonight. So here's the first thing that I want to mention in terms of the future, in terms of when we're really getting into football season. Of course, it's week number one right now. So here's the thing that I want to talk about. Okay, I work a full-time job, but I also work freelance TV production gigs here in the Twin Cities. And to kind of put not too fine a point on it, I'd rather not. I'd rather really focus on this here on the Big Ten TED channel. And a great way for me to do that is to be able to hit that join button below and be a member of the Big Ten TED Champions Club. Whenever you post a comment on a video, I'll always respond to it. A feature in live chats, all sorts of things. Kind of an exclusive perks exclusive. And it allows me to really invest more resources here into the channel going forward. So if you want to be a part of that, help the channel continue to grow and grow and grow and more, especially right in football season. We're right into the meat of it. Hit that join button and become a member of the Big Ten TED Champions Club. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I want to share with you right now is something I am really excited about. It was actually earlier today I launched the Big Ten TED Discord server. If you don't know what Discord is, it's a lot like a message board. It's a lot like a chat room. I've got chat rooms and forums for all 18 Big Ten teams starting in 2024. We've got general Big Ten chat. We've got recruiting, transfer portal. So you can talk Big Ten 24/7, 365. And the great thing about that compared to this channel is, I upload a video, I do a live stream for you guys to get engaged. But you can start fan versus fan discussions without me uploading anything. It's free. It's a great way to get involved. I'm going to throw that in the chat right now. So here is the link to the Discord server. If you want to invite, there's the invitation link. If you want to be a part of that, it's a great place. I'm hoping to build it up a little bit, kind of work out some kinks as we kind of move along here. But very excited to have the Big Ten TED Discord server. Fans of all teams can kind of chat 24/7, 365, all Big Ten, all year long, as we like to say here. So as I said, we're going to talk Minnesota. We're going to talk Nebraska. Kane Rob will join us, breaking down some week one games as well. A way for you to get involved tonight is a super chat, as I said, helps grow the channel, helps support the channel as well. I've got calls after our segment with Kane. I'm going to try to open up some calls here a little bit later. If you want to be involved in the show, if you want to sound off about your team's week one game, maybe Minnesota-Nebraska, you got an opinion on that, you can be involved in that as well. And I am going to drop that link in the chat right now. So after Kane's segment here in just a little bit, we can get to that if you've got something that you want to get off your chest. If you've got something you want to say about the upcoming weekend in terms of Big Ten football, you can do that. If you're going to do it video, all I ask is you don't use your phone. Right now, I don't have the capability to have that vertical video and all that, but if it's just audio, it works. Just disable your video once we get to that point. All right, so let's dive right into it. And before, I actually got a couple of more things that I want to get to. First thing, big applause, big thumbs up, whatever, to Trev Alberts. Right, volleyball day in Nebraska was absolutely spectacular. It was a spectacle. it was awesome to see that, and the growth, the sport of volleyball and other women's sports that the Big Ten has been able to achieve. Of course, you got Caitlin Clark in women's basketball, and now what Nebraska's able to do, packing 92,000 into Memorial Stadium, just goes to show the type of fan base that the University of Nebraska truly has. So that's really awesome to see. And man, what they were able to do and what's been able to happen at Nebraska, this volleyball program, top 5 in the country. Wisconsin is number 1 in the country. Minnesota is top 10 as well. No one does volleyball better than the Big Ten Conference right now. And I'm just going to quickly kind of mention this. Cal, Stanford, SMU making their way to the ACC. This seems to me like a move where Jim Phillips and the presidents of a lot of these ACC schools are preparing for what's to come with Florida State, with Clemson, with North Carolina, with a lot of these teams right now that could end up leaving or challenging the grant of rights here in the ACC. Is it weird? Yeah, this whole thing is really weird. The travel is going to be very interesting. But hey, Cal and Stanford got their wish to get into a Power 5 league that has high academic standards. So I guess good on the Golden Bears and good on the Cardinal, but they're going to be long and a lot of miles playing those conference games. And SMU, okay, that's the way you buy your way into a conference. Okay, it's just the way it is now. It's kind of, a precedent has been set that this is something that can happen in the future, folks. So don't be surprised if this happens again. All right, let's get into it, folks. Let's talk Minnesota and let's talk Nebraska. Huskers and Gophers. What a way. You want Big Ten football? This is the way to start a Big Ten football season. And when you talk about Big Ten football and you talk about the Big Ten West specifically, I think you got to start about defense. And I think with this game, I want to start on the defensive side of the football. Man, coming into this season, if you watched my Nebraska preview, you found out I wasn't too high on Nebraska's defense, especially that pass defense, but man, could they cover. They did a great job in coverage back there, and I think that's what at times, not all the time, a little bit kind of made it more difficult for Minnesota to kind of throw the football a little bit more in some parts as well. But they did a good job, and they did a good job attacking this Minnesota offensive line as well. So that's kind of something to keep in mind. For Minnesota, they've got to kind of keep an eye on that going forward. Of course, they've had some studs on that Gopher offensive line. How are they going to be able to make that better, kind of patch those holes on the offensive line as well? I think that's something to really focus on if you're PJ Fleck and this Minnesota coaching staff kind of going forward. This O-line has been so key to the success of Gopher football over the last couple of years. If they got to get that right. They got to get that right if they're going to have success here kind of coming up throughout the season. Let's talk about Ethan Kaliakmanis a little bit. Some other people might not think so, but I thought he played pretty decent. Okay, because you're going from an offense where you are handing the ball time after time after time to Muhammad Ibrahim, and now you're switching up where you're throwing it. In the first game against Nebraska, they threw it over 40 times. Ethan Kaliakmanis did. Okay, so for him to kind of switch that up, it's going to take a little bit, I think, for this offense to really be able to hit its stride going forward. But I thought in their first effort, this thing was good, right? No Chris Ottman-Bell in this game. So I think that's something else that needs to be taken into consideration as well. How about Daniel Jackson stepping up and having a great game? Of course, the touchdown catch at the end of the game. Fantastic play over there. But I thought Ethan Kaliakmanis performed pretty well, all things considered, considering that this Nebraska defense was able to disrupt things up front. I thought Ethan played pretty well. He was the best quarterback on the field. Now, Jeff Sims might have been the best running back on the field, but I thought Ethan Kaliakmanis was the very best quarterbacks of the field. Minnesota's got to get better in the run game. That's how I feel about this right now. Sean Tyler was kind of the majority of things in that run game. We saw some Darius Taylor a little bit. We saw some Bryce Williams. I don't recall seeing much of Zach Evans. I know he was kind of slated to maybe be in the mix at running back. But you got to find some balance. You got to find a run game. It was there at times, I think, for Minnesota. But we're just so used. I think maybe I'm so used to seeing that Minnesota run game just being ultra physical and continuing to hit that line of scrimmage. So we'll see how that goes going forward. But Minnesota, they got a good young quarterback in Ethan Kaliak-Manis. I think he's going to be able to do some good things going forward. Boy, I tell you what, this game is completely different if Nebraska finishes in the red zone. There were two red zone trips that really stick out in my mind. Of course, the one where Jeff Sims threw the interception after being down at the 1 yard line. You could argue that the ball broke the plane. I thought that was a touchdown from Gabe Ervin Jr., but that's a different discussion for a different time. But man, you go down there, those two big trips inside the 5 yard line, and you come away with a grand total of 3 points. You finish in the red zone, and this is a Nebraska victory. Now, you got to give credit on the other side. You got to give credit to Minnesota making the play. How about Tyler Nubin? When I'm talking to Kane here in just a little bit, I want to talk maybe about Tyler Nubin, Antoine Winfield Jr. Okay, are they going to have a similar last season in the maroon and gold? We can maybe talk about that, but there is 2 interceptions in this game for Tyler Nubin. For my money, he's the best safety in the Big Ten Conference. Then speaking of these, the pass game and defending the pass game, right? We were just talking about Tyler Nubin. How about Justin Wally was really, really good in this game as well. Boy, I think both secondaries did really good. I think that's what made it as difficult to move the ball down the field. Like, we didn't see a ton in the deep ball going down the field. Jeff Sims tried to hit it a few times. Ethan Kaliak-Manis tried to hit it a few times. But the coverage was just right on their hip pocket kind of all night long in this game. I think these are two teams that are going to continue to get better. They've got some things to work out. Nebraska, I know the initial impression is going to be, woe is me, here we go again. Right, we're carrying over all the Scott Frost stuff into the Matt Rule stuff. Let's pump the brakes a little bit, because this Nebraska team looked a lot different than any Scott Frost team that we ever saw. This was a team that ran the football. Jeff Sims, even quarterback run, man, did he take some hits. I don't know if Nebraska is going to be able to continue to run the ball that physically with Jeff Sims. They need Gabe Ervin Jr., Anthony Grant, Ramir Johnson to maybe contribute just a little bit more kind of going forward. So you're going to need some of that for Nebraska, but this is a tough physical team with a good defense. That is something we haven't talked about for Nebraska maybe in decades, right, when you talk about a Nebraska team. This is a good start, but let's call it as it is, folks. They fumbled the game away in more ways than one. Okay, Nebraska had this one, right? 5 minutes and change to go. They're driving down the field. But once again, for that on one side, you got to look to the other side as well. You got to give credit to Minnesota finding a way to win. We've talked about Nebraska continuously finding a way to lose. How about Minnesota finding a way to win? How about Justin Wally doing his best Peanut Tillman, punching that ball out and forcing a turnover for Minnesota to be able to go down and score and to be able to get the job done over there. But boy, these are both teams that I think have some things to work on going forward. But I think they have some positives. They will get better as this season continues to progress. I don't think there's any doubt about that. All right, folks, it is time to move on here with our program here tonight, and it is time to talk a little Gophers here tonight. I am pleased to be welcomed now by the host of the Locked On Golden Gophers podcast, Mr. Kane Rob joins us now. Kane, you were in attendance last night at Huntington Bank Stadium over there. What was the atmosphere like? Let's kind of start with that. What was the atmosphere like inside the stadium?
It was a fun atmosphere. I'm not going to lie to you there. It was very gold. There was more red than I would like to see, but the student section showed out really well. They showed out loud and proud. It was rocking. It was a great environment for the first game of college football.
Okay, let's move into this one. Let's break down this matchup here just a little bit more. What was your first initial impression of Ethan Kaliak-Manis? Like I said, threw it over 40 times in this one. That was pretty different to what they did kind of last season. What was your initial impressions of him throwing the football around?
I wasn't surprised too much at how much they threw, maybe a little bit. I didn't expect in the 40s. I thought maybe we could touch into the 30s a little bit, but overall, I think I was fairly impressed with how Ethan played. I think there's still room for improvement, room for growth, but the thing that impressed me beyond the box score, I'm not looking at the yardage or the touchdown and interception. It's how he anticipated or read the blitzes. It's how he adjusted and got on the move. It's when he determined if he should throw the ball out or if he should take a risk. He didn't put the ball in harm's way too many times. Now, one of them underthrown for an interception, and another one that could have been an interception right before the toe drag of the Daniel Jackson touchdown. Those were the 2 turnover-worthy plays he had in the entire game of 44 pass attempts. 44 pass attempts, 2 turnover-worthy plays. I think he did fairly well, especially knowing that there were 1, 2, 3 defenders on his tail almost every given play.
We got a comment here coming in from Gerald I kind of want to touch on. Do you think, Gopher fans, do you think the new clock rules made an impact on the game? What's kind of your take? And you can talk about maybe in terms of this game and then maybe overall these new clock rules this year.
I think maybe not for the fans overall. It doesn't feel like it's sped up, but the game is sped up. It changes how maybe you would handle some things. And Coach Fleck had talked about that in the presser after the game a little bit, that it felt like the game was flying by. And so then the media timeouts felt a little bit extended because you kind of had to catch up in that, right? So it was interesting to say the least, but I definitely think that it does have some sort of impact on the game.
All right, let's kind of move on. Yeah, it's very similar. It's been compared a lot to the pitch clock. We know how much money is going into college football, so you're gonna get from a viewership. I know you were in the stadium, but for me, from a viewership, got a lot of ad breaks there. It's like we got to get all these spots in kind of towards the end of the game, so that might be something that you'll see more of. Okay, Chris Ottman-Bell, Cody Lindenberg, 2 key pieces for the Minnesota Golden Gophers this season and going forward, were for the most part not in this game last night, I should say. How big is their return? How important is that? If Minnesota wants to accomplish another 9-win season, how important is the return of Chris Ottman-Bell and Cody Lindenberg, and what do you know about maybe their return?
Yeah, I think for the longevity, it is big for the success for the Gophers. The wide receiver room is pretty deep, but Chris Ottman-Bell just brings more confidence, more leadership to the field that can just help spark more life, especially if we are going to be passing the ball as much as we did. Now, I do think they'll get the running game a bit more involved, and I think this Eastern Michigan game is going to be key in trying to get that started and get that going. But overall, I think Chris Ottman-Bell, I know when we were last able to see him in the fall camp, he was taking some contact. He was running full routes. He was playing in some 7-on-7 live drills. So I think he's probably closer, but I'm guessing they're not going to rush him into it. They're going to slowly speed it up. So even when he does get into the game past the first snap and he gets into more snaps, he'll probably maybe be on a pitch count to start and then slowly progress him in. Cody Lindenberg, it sounds like his injury was more minor, but it happened towards the last week or so. It sounds like it's a leg injury and that the training staff, they were trying to do what they could to get him ready for this game, but it just wasn't. It was a close call, but it wasn't going to happen this week. Maybe he takes it a little easier on this Eastern Michigan week and really focuses and concentrates on getting back in that North Carolina matchup. That'll be so huge. But it sounds like both of these players will be back sooner than any long-term things.
Yeah, that North Carolina game coming up, that's a big one in a couple of weeks that those guys, going to need those guys to be able to get that going. Let's talk about the run game a little bit. We saw a lot of Sean Tyler last night. We saw, as I mentioned in my kind of breakdown of it, we saw Darius Taylor a little bit, the true freshman in there. We saw Bryce Williams. We didn't see Zach Evans. Kind of break down what you saw from the run game and what we can maybe expect going forward for Minnesota.
Yeah, I think it's hard to really take this game at face value, in my opinion, with the run game. I'm not surprised that we saw a lot of Bryce Williams and a lot of Sean Tyler because they're veteran players. They've been in big games under the bright lights. You're talking about a nationally televised game, sold out crowd, and just younger, newer players sometimes tend to maybe have a turnover or have put the ball in harm's way. They can maybe get it punched out like we saw Anthony Grant happen yesterday, even though he's more of a veteran back. And so I think PJ tried to take that out of their hands maybe a little bit. We did see one carry from Darius Taylor, and he came in on a couple plays. I am really hoping we'll see him a lot more in this Eastern Michigan game because he contrasts the style of football that Sean Tyler plays. He is more of the go in there and fight for the yards, more of that north-south runner that we got used to with Mo Ibrahim. So I think that will help in more of these grimy games like we saw against Nebraska. Now, when you have two backs that are more east-west backs and trying to look for the gaps and get through them quickly, if those aren't there, you start to struggle, especially when your offensive line is struggling like the Gophers did in the run blocking yesterday. So I hope that we'll see a little bit more of Darius Taylor moving forward. I was really surprised Zach Evans didn't get a single snap, I don't believe, in this game. So I think Eastern Michigan, we're going to see a lot different of an offense. I think the Gophers were really, really trying to cater towards this 3-3-5 system with the quick passing game, getting it out of the Athan's hands quickly, making the offensive line not have to block too long, and that was really the game plan on this one.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that defense from Nebraska going up against the Minnesota offensive line. We're so used to seeing those big, great offensive linemen. Of course, John Michael Schmitz. Last year, you kind of go back a couple of years. They've had some really good players up front. How much of a concern right now is this offensive line? And kind of because we see a 3-3-5 system, it looked like it confused kind of Minnesota in some certain spots up front. There were some spots in the game where Nebraska continuously on the pass rush, and then you mentioned the run game as well, where Nebraska was able to continuously get into the backfield. How much of a concern right now do you think is this Minnesota offensive line?
I do think it is a concern. I know that PJ kind of said he was pretty impressed with the beginning and the ending of the offensive line in yesterday's game, but the middle half wasn't so great. I was concerned heading into this game, and I didn't see too much that took away or alleviated those concerns. But I do think a lot of it does come from that 3-3-5 system. If you even look back at the Syracuse bowl game last year, the Gophers had some struggles with handling it, and that was with Syracuse, who didn't have a single defensive lineman that was over 275 pounds. Now, last night, you're looking at 3, 4, 5 different defensive linemen that were in the 300-pound range, and that could really have some force, aggression, and move those offensive linemen. So I think not knowing where the stunts and the blitz were coming from, on top of bigger, stronger, faster players, it gave this offensive line some troubles. Now, we're probably not going to see another defense like this until maybe that Wisconsin game, who also is looking more in that 3-3-5 system. Hopefully the Gophers' chemistry can build up a little bit more there. They can handle it. And now they have the film from this game to make some adjustments. But the O-line does worry me a little bit. I'll be interested to see if those struggles continue, if they start to try to get younger guys in there like Greg Johnson, who impressed a lot of the coaches over the fall camp and spring as well. So it's definitely a unit to keep an eye on. That being said, I think Ariante Ursary had a fairly decent game. He graded out pretty well with the PFF numbers that came out in this week 1 matchup, but lots of work to do on the offensive line.
We're just so used to Minnesota, just having that Minnesota moving company mentality where they are just they never have these issues, and it's going to be very interesting. You mentioned 3-3-5, right? You talk about that Syracuse game. Who was the defensive coordinator? Tony White. So he kind of maybe had an early look, kind of dating back to that bowl game. And, you go back to the college football playoff. TCU comes in with a 3-3-5 and kind of gave Michigan a little bit of problems in that game. So maybe outside of this offensive line, when you kind of look at Minnesota from a 10,000-foot view, what are some other concerns that you have coming off of Thursday's game going forward?
I thought I was going to be worried about the interior pressure of the D-line. I actually just rewatched the game prior to coming on the show, and there were a lot of moments, especially from Devin Eastern and Kyler Baugh, that really intrigued me. There was that first interception that Jeff Sims had, almost was a sack. The pressure from the interior, they had 6 guys on the line, 5 O-linemen and a tight end. And Minnesota had 4 defensive linemen coming through, and they found enough pressure to hit Jeff Sims in that play, but he still kind of was rushed and threw the first interception to Tyler Nubin. Those type of flashes intrigue me because we haven't seen those. We didn't see those very much last year. And then you talk about they got home 3 sacks in 1 drive basically last night, and they had 5 tackles for loss. That's improvements in my eyes, and so hopefully they'll continue to improve in that metric. So not too worried as I thought I was going to be there, but the running backs have to be a little bit of a worry. I'm not a full red alert or anything like that. I think we just need to see maybe some of those younger guys, maybe see not a 3-3-5 defense, and see how they can get comfortable and start to find those openings and start to build that confidence. So the O-line, the running backs are kind of the red alert right now, but running backs not as much as that offensive line.
Boy, we got a long way to go. Minnesota, both, and Nebraska, I think, can improve as this thing kind of goes on. Kane, thanks for joining us tonight. Good luck to your Gophers the rest of the season.
I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for Kane Rob for joining us here tonight on the show, talking all things Minnesota over there at Locked On Golden Gophers. All right. So let's get to some comments right now as it pertains to this game, because I've got my right eye on this Michigan State Central Michigan, and every time I look at it, what are we, third quarter, under 5 minutes to go, and it's still 10-7. I know Michigan State went down and got a touchdown after Central Michigan got a touchdown kind of in that first half, but man, they got to get it together. Man, they were having troubles early on in this game, kind of against the Chippewas. Doug Phelps joining us tonight. Ugly game, but Minnesota showed up. I guess beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I guess I'll start off by saying that it was a Big Ten football game, defensive football game. Nebraska, I will say this about Nebraska. They have to, like they got to get better in the pass game. I don't know if it's as simple as other receivers like a Marcus Washington or an Isaiah Garcia Castaneda and some of these other guys I don't know what they did. I know that Borkircher got involved a little bit with the tight end game. Thomas Fidone. How much longer do Nebraska fans have to wait for Thomas Fidone to really realize his great potential right when he came out of Council Bluffs a couple of years ago? Injuries in back-to-back years have really held him back at the tight end position. But, man, we know they want to get the tight ends involved. We'll see if it's just Borkircher or who exactly it is kind of going forward. Doug Phelps also saying Sims should be a running back. He was a running back. He was the best running back, I would say. But Gabe Ervin Jr. was pretty good as well, even though they kind of split up the carries a little bit in the backfield. I thought maybe Gabe should have gotten a few more carries kind of as this thing progressed as well. Now, Doug also chiming in with the attendance of that Nebraska volleyball game, 92,003. That is absolutely insane where they're at right now. And then Mike kind of chiming in. I kind of touched this before, Mike, about Nebraska just killing themselves with penalties, right? Because when they got into the red zone, those two times, when one time they threw the interception, what was at the end of the first half, and then in the second half, as well, it's just both of those times there were false start penalties that backed them up outside of the 5-yard line or right at the 5-yard line if you count about the time where they were at the 1 and then moved 5 yards back. So like that was the key. And then it just brings up those nightmares that I'm sure Nebraska fans have of what's happened with penalties and these miscues that we've seen over the last handful of years from the boys in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's just, I feel for you. I feel for you, Husker fans, because, and I think they're going to turn it around. I think there were some good things to take out of this game, but, I've heard a lot of people say that. It says, well, we can take some positive things out of this game, but you got to find a way to win at some point. Okay, that's a lot of what people were saying with Scott Frost. Well, this happened, but this happened. You know what I say? It's like, well, yeah, these bad things happen, but look what we did good. And I understand you're trying to get that positive attitude right now, and you're trying to stay up, so to speak. But man, it's just, you got to find a way to win, at some point. And I hope Matt Rule is able to do it next week at Colorado. I'm rooting. I'm sure everybody in Big Ten country is rooting for him right now and right as we speak. Michigan State on the board. Not sure how it happened, but I do see, I think, Doug and everybody else. And I see it right here. Extra point goes through to make it 17-7. Let's talk about Michigan State a little bit. They came out and Noah Kim was kind of missing throws early on, but I really liked how they started the game with Nathan Carter. I'm trying to get my eyeballs here on who ended up scoring. Was that Berger? It looks like number 8, Jalen Berger. Got the touchdown there for Michigan State. If both Nathan Carter and Jalen Berger, because Carter looked really good early in the game, right? I think it was the first drive of the game, busted off a big 20-some yard run. Yeah, it's Jalen Berger right there. Oh, look at that, 24 rush yards, 30 receiving yards, and a touchdown. All-purpose guy, I guess, right now for Michigan State. But they're going to depend on the run game. That's the way it looks like for MSU. And boy, this is the kind of game that they better turn it on here right now in the fourth quarter, is what we're at, 2:42 kind of left in the third quarter. Michigan State really needs to turn it on here in the fourth quarter. Otherwise, the Mel Tucker naysayers are going to continue to be very, very, very boisterous going forward. Mike chiming in, friend of the show. Good guy, Mike. Nebraska held Minnesota in passing and rushing yards. They were under 200 through the air. Even though I thought Ethan Kaliakmanis did a pretty good job throwing the football, yeah, he was still under 200 yards because that deep ball just wasn't there. I said it in my reaction. The deep ball just wasn't there, so it was a lot of dink and dunk. It was a lot of short yardage type of stuff for Ethan Kaliakmanis. And Mike thinks there's going to be a new starting quarterback next year. Now, Jeff Sims is, I'm pretty sure, I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure he has eligibility to play this year and next year. So we'll see what happens. And you're starting with a conference game. You're starting with an opponent that's going to give you a tough time. Going on the road, we don't know what Colorado is going to look like. I'm very intrigued to see what this Colorado-TCU game is going to look like because there's so many new people on the Buffaloes this year, and of course the new coaching staff. What's that all going to look like for Nebraska going forward? Is Colorado a talented team? I'm not sure they are. I think they still got a ways to go. I think Nebraska right now wins that game, but there's still a lot of time between now and then. Big Ten Johnny in the house here tonight. Appreciate Johnny being here. Doug Phelps was not impressed with Minnesota's offense, but the defense looked pretty good. And remember, that was a defense minus Cody Lindenberg. You get Cody Lindenberg back, and boy, the combination of Justin Wally and Tyler Nubin in that secondary, I think, is going to be dangerous for the Golden Gophers going forward. You saw Tyler Nubin, I think he's very comparable to something we saw a couple of years ago in Antoine Winfield Jr. as well. A safety back there that could take the football away. Remember Antoine Winfield Jr. from that great 2019 squad over there. Mike says, so the Nebraska game has come and gone. So now Mike's a Gopher fan all year long. Is that how it works? That's what we're going with. At least right now. Big thanks to Mike for the super chat. Thanks for helping us out. Thanks for the $10. Gerald. That is shout out to Mike for the super chat, right? John just coming in, right? I was clicking the last comment, and John just comes in right there. Thanks, Mike. For your support over the months. And I don't know, has it been a year since you've been watching? Seems that long. TCU will cover, according to Gerald. Not sure what the spread is. But that's where we're at. All right, thanks everybody for watching Big Ten Ted Live here tonight. So what else are we going to do here tonight? We're going to go over some week one games, some things that I kind of want to keep an eye on going forward as we kind of continue to kind of go along here throughout week one. Here's what I will say about the coverage on this channel for week one games. Gonna try to get out for a hike in the morning before football starts. It's getting pretty warm here in Minnesota. Got a heat wave coming through right in the middle of the Minnesota State Fair. What a great time for that, right? So I'm going to try to get that. I'm going to keep an eye on Ohio State, Indiana in the 2 o'clock time slot, but I'm mainly going to have a reaction of Penn State against West Virginia. So I'm going to post that on the channel. I may or may not post the Ohio State, Indiana reaction. That kind of is to be determined. Kind of the result of that game will probably determine whether I react to that one or not. How about Toledo and Illinois? I think that could be a good one. That might get a reaction video over there on Saturday. So I think I got that stuff coming up as well over there. Very excited about the Saturday. There could be some matchups that surprise some people. I think next week we'll really get into some good games, right? You got Iowa taking on Iowa State. You got Nebraska taking on Colorado as well. That one I'm really excited about as well. There's some really good games here coming up next week. All right, folks, let's get into some games. Let's talk about some games, why don't we? This week, the remainder of the week one matchups. I will remind everybody here that the link to join the show is up in that. You might have to scroll up a little bit in the chat. So if you're interested in joining me talking week 1 football, that would be the way to do it. All right, here's kind of one that I want to take a look at right now to start. Okay, well, we'll do one, then I'll kind of segue into the second. Illinois-Toledo. Toledo, the defending MAC champions. This is a solid Toledo team. Now, Illinois is at home. They're a 9-point favorite against Toledo. Right now, I don't think Illinois covers. Okay, because Illinois is breaking in a new quarterback. You got Chase Brown is no longer there. You take a look in the secondary, the stuff they're losing with Devin Witherspoon and Sidney Brown. I was blanking on the safety's name there. Sidney Brown. That's kind of, they're losing those guys in the secondary. You take on a solid group of 5 team in the Toledo Rockets. I think this is a game to watch out for. Do we want to label it upset alert? Sure, we can do that. But I think this is a interesting matchup. This is one to really keep your eye on. And Illinois might start a little bit slow in this one. It would not surprise me to see Illinois start slow. But I really want to keep an eye on Luke Altmaier. He was that transfer quarterback, 4-star guy coming out of high school. Kind of lost some battles in the Ole Miss quarterback room over there. Now he comes into an Illinois system where they might throw the ball a little bit more because now they don't have a bell cow running back in Chase Brown, and they got some good, decent weapons on the outside. Now we know Brett Bielema and Barry Lenny Jr. still want to be physical. They still want to be physical out there, and we know that's the MO of a Brett Bielema team. But having a quarterback back there like Luke Altmaier, I think you could consider him comparable to Tommy DeVito. I think he's actually a little bit of a step up from Tommy DeVito, but we got to wait and see as well with everything out there with Toledo and Illinois. Very excited to see that matchup between the Illini and the Toledo Rockets. How about Wisconsin taking on Buffalo, right? The Badgers and the Buffalo Bulls, another team from the MAC. Okay, Wisconsin, I want to see you protect the football. Tanner Mordecai, I want to see you protect the football. I think that's the big thing that I really want to focus on tonight in this matchup for Tanner Mordecai. We know what happened in that spring game. Tanner Mordecai throwing interception after interception after interception. And I think a lot of people out there really want to focus in on what is this offense going to look like under Phil Longo? Is this an offense that's going to run it a little bit more than maybe a Phil Longo offense is used to? Or are they going to throw it a little bit more than Wisconsin fans are used to? I think those are the couple of things to really keep an eye on at this point in time right now with the Wisconsin Badgers. So very excited to see what is going to come of Wisconsin here coming forward. Because if all goes well, I think that they're running on full cylinders, and Tanner Mordecai and Braylon Allen and those guys could be out at some time in the fourth quarter. But we'll see. Kind of these first game, things can happen. I think that's the offense that a lot of people are looking at. This Wisconsin offense in game number 1, what's it going to look like? What's it going to look like? Is it going to be a high-flying offense? Are they going to run it a little bit more? I think this offense is going to be a little bit more balanced than people anticipate. Okay, because you've got a run game. Remember back in 2020, Phil Longo coordinated a North Carolina offense that had not one, but 2 1,000-yard rushers. All right, so I think this has to be balanced because you can't have Tanner Mordecai putting it up 30 times a game, 40 times a game, and be successful. You need to balance things out with the run game. I honestly believe that. I very much believe that to be the key here right now. How about Purdue taking on Fresno State? This is another one. Fresno State was the Mountain West champions from last season. Now, this is a Fresno State team that loses a lot quarterback and a lot of the skill positions, but Purdue is also replacing a lot. There's been very high marks from Dave Revson and others coming out of this Purdue camp. And just how good is Purdue and their passing game? Because they've always had a number 1 wide receiver. They've always had a number 1 guy. Okay, going back to Rondale Moore And then you go to David Bell and then Charlie Jones just this last season. Of course, they were in there as well. So what's this going to become? I think it is the big question for Purdue. Are they going to be able to? We know Devin Mockabee returns to the backfield. We know he's going to be good, very, very good in the rushing attack. But where exactly are things going to be? I think that's the big question that needs to be asked with Purdue. We know that defense, it's going to take them a little bit. It's going to take them a little bit to develop kind of as time goes on. I have confidence that Ryan Walters and Kevin Kane are going to get this defense to a respectable point, maybe by the middle of the season. But in game one against Fresno State, a noon game, that's something to watch here. All right, live viewers, Doug kind of keeping me up to date here as I'm kind of going through this as well. We've got Michigan State on the 5-yard line here. I'll take a peek at my phone here. Looks like they hit a big play there. So, this could just be something just starting off slow. Sometimes first game of the season in college football, you don't have preseason games. So a lot of times it kind of takes a lot of this to really get it going here early in the fourth quarter. Michigan State appears to really be putting some stuff together, which is great to see. The last thing we want to see is a Big Ten team fall into a MAC team in year number one. That's the absolute last thing we want to see right now. Mike chiming in with facts right now. Wisconsin moved to a 3-3-5 defense. That is correct. Should be very interesting to see how that progresses here as we kind of go along. Want to give a big shout out here to Dallas becoming the newest member of the Big Ten TED Champions Club. Very appreciate that. Dallas here today. Thank you for becoming a member here on the channel where it's all Big Ten all year long. Dallas, very much appreciate that here this evening. So it looks like Michigan State going up 24-7 right now. Early in this game, Michigan State was struggling. I'm like, oh God, here comes the 7-5 prediction back to bite me, but it looked pretty good, and maybe it's just a little bit of a slow start. Wow, what a catch in the end zone. Rearing back and making the grab. Wow, that's impressive. I knew Dallas, a USC fan in the house as well. He's saying fight on. USC, right? Future Big Ten member, San Jose State. That first game, Dallas, if you want to call in, the link is all the way at the top of the chat because I love to talk USC. Because the big thing about the Trojans, and this is going to be kind of something to keep an eye on in this for this season on this channel, is I'm going to have my eye on some of these Pac-12 teams, the Oregon, USC, UCLA, and Washington. When they kind of play each other, I might do previews, I might do reactions to kind of get fans. I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on those teams this season here in the Big Ten, or in the Pac-12, and they're going to be obviously in the Big Ten next season. This could be, and we saw, of course, at the top of the show, I mentioned we saw Stanford, Cal, and SMU make their way to the ACC. So I heard something that said Oregon State and Washington State might try to make a semblance of something out of the Pac-12. I'm like, there's no Pac-12. It's just you guys. They're like, we're going to try to take some Mountain West members and bring them in here. Well, why not just go to the Mountain West then? If you're just going to get Mountain West members, but whatever, doesn't matter. They're really striving to keep that Pac-12 name alive, apparently over there in Corvallis and Pullman. But getting back kind of what I was originally mentioning, the USC Trojans right now, that defense gave up 28 points to San Jose State. And, they brought in a good amount of transfers to try to bolster up that defense a little bit. So hopefully they can get that defense together, and hopefully it gets better, because USC, look at Zachariah Branch. People already crowning him as the next Reggie Bush. First off, slow the roll, San Jose State Spartans. Second of all, kid looked really good. So Zachariah Branch could be a huge weapon going forward for USC. Got to keep an eye on those future team folks in 18-team Big Ten. It's going to be crazy. this year, kind of going forward, and as we kind of approach everything. So once again, Dallas, thank you for being the newest member of the Big Ten TED Champions Club. All right, where did I leave off here? So yeah, I was talking Purdue, Fresno State. I forgot what the spread is on that game, but I think I had a 9-point deficit, 9-point differential in my predictions. I think I had like something like 30-21 was in there as well. So we'll see. We'll see if Purdue ends up getting to 30. Got to give a big round of applause. It didn't work out last night for Johnny, but it works out tonight. Thanks for being a member of the Big Ten TED Champions Club. That North Metro TV money coming in clutch here tonight. So big thanks to John for being a member of the club here tonight. Jonathan chiming in, go blue. Let's talk about it as long as we're kind of bouncing around here. Let's talk about Michigan. Let's talk about the Michigan Wolverines taking on the East Carolina Pirates on Peacock, baby. First of all, I have Peacock, so I'm not one of those people that's saying, we got to watch a game on Peacock. You know, I'm not one of those grumpy front porch kind of guys. I'm fine with that. It's just one of those deals, I think, for Big Ten viewers. Peacock is one of those deals where you can't channel flip. It's not on YouTube TV. It's not on your cable package. You got to kind of go outside of your comfort zone to try to find it, so to speak, if you wanna find that as well. All right, before I get into Michigan, I gotta answer Doug's comment here. What the hell is Peacock? Streaming NBC streaming service. You might have said that sarcastically, but I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna answer the question just in case it was not sarcastic for people that don't know. What is the website? Peacock.tv, I think is where you sign up. I'm paying right now $5 a month. Right? Yeah, $5 a month. And then if you want to get a plan that's ad-free, it's $10 a month. So Peacock's got some good series on it as well. So if you want to check that out as well. All right, let's talk about Michigan taking on East Carolina. You know, I did this one at the beginning of the week, and I picked 38-6 Michigan. And I'm like, I thought of it as they're going to score a lot right away. And they're going to get their guys out of there, and they're going to coast the rest of the game. And, of course, you don't have Sharon Moore, right, offensive coordinator. He's not there. He's suspended. Jim Harbaugh is suspended as well. So will that have something to do with it? I don't know. I think they're going to be fine, and who knows if they're going to be coasting through East Carolina. But in all reality, they're probably going to get into the 40s. They're probably going to get into the 50s. They're going to score a lot of points. Here's the thing about Michigan is people like myself and other people are not going to be able to really form a great opinion about Michigan right off the bat because you've got, what did I just say? East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green. Okay, if they don't beat those teams, well, maybe we can form an opinion if this doesn't happen. If they don't beat these teams 1,000-3, then maybe there's something there that we need to talk about. But if they beat everybody 50-0, there's not much we can really go off of. Remember, the very first game is going to be at Nebraska. Or no, don't they play Rutgers first? They might play Rutgers first. Actually, I might be mistaken on there for Michigan. But it's going to. The point I'm trying to make is it's going to be a while before we really find out what kind of a team Michigan is, just how good they are. You know, so Rutgers and Nebraska, I believe, are their very first Big Ten games. So, and we kind of saw what Nebraska is. So Nebraska, they might beat Nebraska 30-7. You know, so then we still might not find it. Here, I just pulled up the schedule. Rutgers at home, Nebraska on the road, Minnesota on the road, Indiana at Michigan. Like, you look at all these teams, and we'll see what happens with Minnesota and Nebraska. But we know those. So East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green. Okay, we know those are going to be blowouts. Rutgers, that's going to be another blowout. Nebraska on the road. We'll see where the Huskers are at that point. Will they have built up some confidence and momentum by that point? I don't know. That could be a blowout. Minnesota on the road. We'll see. And then you got Indiana, Michigan State, Purdue. Penn State is on November 11th. Folks, I'm not saying it will happen, but there is a chance, and I think it's a pretty good chance, Michigan will not play a ranked opponent until they play Penn State on Veterans Day on November 11th. Let me go through the matchups again. Rutgers, these are Big Ten games. Rutgers, Nebraska, Minnesota, Indiana, Michigan State, Purdue. Okay, right now, I believe that only Minnesota is the only team in there that is also that's either ranked, which none of them are ranked right now, or receiving votes. I believe it's only Minnesota right now. So who knows? Maybe Michigan State looks like they're getting it together. They're looking pretty good kind of right now. But, boy, not playing a ranked opponent until November 11th? We'll see what happens with Michigan State. We'll see what happens with Minnesota. We'll see what happens with some of these teams. But there's a chance that could be the case. There's a chance Michigan could play only 2 ranked teams this year in Penn State and Ohio State. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's the kind of schedule that Michigan is going to put together for this season. Let's get into some more comments. Jonathan joining us. I think Michigan is going to be fired up. I'm fired up. I'm ready for football. Let's do it. Enough money, realignment, football. Sunday. I think Michigan is going to be fired up that Harbaugh and Moore are suspended and take it out on ECU. I feel bad for the Pirates. I really do. I think you might be right here, Jonathan. Yeah, they're gonna take out their energy. They're gonna take out their aggression because, I don't know how much this factors in. I'm sure Jim Harbaugh is motivated to go out there. How much more does this NCAA shenanigans? Because I don't know what else to call it. It's not. It's stupid. Is what it is. How much does these shenanigans really motivate Jim Harbaugh and the team going forward? I think maybe a little bit. But I think it's more of a Harbaugh thing than it maybe is the entire rest of this team as well. Doug chiming in thinks he's got 7-0 right out of the gate, and this is a great possibility that Michigan can go undefeated. Okay, because when it comes to, I think Michigan, there's some games you look at on this Michigan schedule. It's like, yeah, that team could give them a run for their money. It could be remember like Maryland last year where that game was close. Kind of earlier in the game, and then Michigan pulled away, and then they pulled away. Maryland came back. Michigan pulled away. Maryland came back. Kind of something like that, if you remember that game, kind of earlier last season. Like you look at a road game at Minnesota, a road game at Michigan State, could maybe be those games. Who knows if Michigan State, they need to play a lot better than they're doing right now against Central Michigan, although they're playing a lot better kind of later in the game, but at least earlier in the game, they need to play a lot better to be able to compete with a team like Michigan. But the rivalry game, throw the records out the window. You know how all that stuff works as well. But, man, Michigan could really flex their muscle this season. It's just Michigan is the only team in the Big Ten right now that I believe could go 15-0. Penn State is a great team. I just don't know if they could run the table. I don't know if Penn State could beat Georgia. Michigan is a team with a lot coming back. It's a lot of experience. They've been there and done that. They've got the motivation of what's happened the last 2 years in the playoff. They've got that steam. They've got that bulletin board material. We already talked about the NCAA stuff. I said it maybe wouldn't be a huge motivator, but hey, who knows what it's like? That's just my opinion. Who knows what it's actually like in the locker room? Jim Harbaugh he just might come out and not show mercy to anybody right now. But I believe Michigan is maybe the only team right now in the Big Ten that I could foresee going 15-0. Mike chiming in. That's a primetime game. Nebraska and Michigan. That is. I thought that was big noon. That doesn't have the time on the schedule I'm looking at. But it is scheduled to be a pretty big game as well. So, yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. Like, let's say Nebraska beats Colorado. They got Northern Illinois and Louisiana Tech on the schedule. Nebraska would be 3-1 going into that game against Michigan, they'd be carrying a little bit of momentum. Game is in Lincoln, they'd be feeling better about themselves. And who knows what can happen. And remember the last time these two teams met in Lincoln, Nebraska. Nebraska, let's be honest, they should have won the football game. But Adrian Martinez decided to fight for a few more yards, ended up fumbling the football, and that's that, right? So Michigan is looking for win number 1,000. According to Gerald here, it become the week of the Maryland game, which is later in the season. That Maryland game's a little tricky, okay, because they got to go on the road to College Park, right between Penn State and Ohio State. Once again, I'm not saying this is going to be an upset by any means, right? This is not going to be an upset, but all I'm saying is it's tricky. I don't know if it was in this exact spot a season ago, but Ohio State, remember, late in the season, they went to Maryland and they needed a shootout. Their defense kind of had a little bit of a tougher time slowing down the Terps that specific night, and it came close. It came close. You can see Maryland chipping away. They've struggled with their regional matchup against Penn State, but you look at the matchups against Michigan, you look at the matchups against Ohio State, Maryland has played some pretty close games as of late. This year is going to be very interesting to see what happens kind of going forward with all of them. Dallas chiming in as well, kind of taking Ted. Thank goodness USC has a year before we move to the Big Ten. We still have time to hire a real defensive coordinator. Alex Grinch, the story that stole USC's 2023 season. Right? Boy, I don't know how Alex Grinch blackmailed Lincoln Riley for him to keep his job. Remember, he was at Oklahoma, and those defenses, from what I remember, and those defenses weren't that great either. And maybe it was those defenses that cost Oklahoma with guys like Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield. Maybe it was those Alex Grinch defenses that cost them. They could have won a national championship over there at Oklahoma, right, as far as I can remember. At least it's just like, I don't know what happened. I'm not going to judge. I'm just going to sit back here and to continue to scratch my head. But I greatly, they got to figure something out. They got to figure something out on defense, because there's a lot of good offenses in the final year of the Pac-12. There's a lot of good offenses out there right now. Okay. Washington, I forgot who they play on the schedule, but Washington, or I know they play Oregon late in the season. That's another really good offense. If they can't slow them down, can they win? Yeah, they can put up 50-some points. But there might be a game sometime where maybe it just things aren't clicking the way you think on the offensive side of the ball, and USC's got to find other ways to beat a team. Sometimes that's defense. I just want to see Lincoln Riley coach a team. We know a Lincoln Riley coach team is going to be great on offense. That is just like an Iowa team coordinated by Phil Parker is going to be great on defense. We know USC is going to be awesome on the offensive side of the football. That's a given. But they got to figure it out on defense. They got to figure it out. And I want to see them figure it out before they get into the Big Ten. Okay, because now you got this explosive USC offense, and now you got this defense that's given up a lot of points. How is that going to translate into the Big Ten? That's something that we got to figure out. Thanks, Doug, for joining us here tonight. He's got to take the dog for a walk. I get it. Doug chiming in. Michigan and Minnesota. Little Brown Jug before he had to take a dog for a walk. Always a good game. Yeah, looking forward to that one. Very much looking forward to that matchup, because that comes after the Nebraska game. And what we saw from the Husker defense, that could be a little bit of a challenge. I'm not saying it will be a huge challenge, because it's not going to be a huge challenge. I think that Michigan's going to win by at least 2 touchdowns. But that Nebraska defense could maybe ding Michigan up a little bit. And then you got Minnesota the next week, going on the road to Nebraska, and then going on the road to Minnesota. That is no easy task, folks. That is not an easy Big Ten West back-to-back to start off. I know I've kind of mentioned the easiness of the schedule for this team, but yeah, they got to That's a tough back-to-back. That's not the easiest thing in the world. I'll just say that. Gerald checking it. Riley may not think the Big Ten offenses can stress USC like the Pac does. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see the transition that is made when USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon come into the Big Ten. I think the culture of just football between the Pac-12 and the Big Ten is very, very different. And I think both sides are going to have to meet in the middle. I think Big Ten offenses that aren't as explosive are going to have to be more explosive because USC, Oregon, we know these kids, they recruit really good offensive players. They recruit good quarterbacks. They recruit good skill players. It's just it's 2024 is going to be such an interesting year. Man, that's going to be so interesting and so fun to watch here going forward. Can't wait for it. All right, folks, let's dive into some other games. I talked about Michigan a little bit. Let's talk about the Iowa Hawkeyes for a minute. It sounds like Cade McNamara should be good to go. So that should be good for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Got to get Caleb Johnson going in that run game. I think that's going to be the big key right now for the Iowa Hawkeyes. If they can get that run game going, then that opens everything up. The reason why Cade McNamara is a perfect fit for the Iowa Hawkeyes is because they want to play like Michigan plays, right? They want to have a great offensive line. They want to establish the run. They want to put less pressure on their quarterback. That's why Cade McNamara was so successful in 2021 at the University of Michigan. He didn't throw an interception until the Nebraska game, which is about mid to late October of that season back in 2021. Okay, so he can protect the football, which is key for Iowa. And he's such a big step up from Spencer Petras right now. But we know the Hawks are going to have an outstanding defense. Will it maybe be as good as we've seen the last couple of years? I don't know. When you lose guys like Jack Campbell, Seth Benson, Riley Moss, you lose a lot of really good players. Yeah, you need to make things happen. Other guys need to step up. Maybe you take a bit of a step back on the defensive side of the ball at Iowa. But man, I feel like this offense, I don't know how good they're going to be quite yet, and that's what I want to see in this Utah. I want to see them gain a lot of confidence against Utah State. This game is actually really big, I believe, as far as this game kind of goes along, happens kind of going forward. Because you need to put up 30 or 35 points to gain that offense right away, get a lot of people off your back, kind of take that pressure off a little bit, and kind of get it in your head that this is a totally different team. This is a totally different offense. We're not like Iowa was before. I think that's so key to this game against the Aggies over there of Utah State. I want to thank everybody for being along for the ride here on the live stream here tonight. Once again, I want to tell everybody I'm going to be having my reaction of Penn State, West Virginia after the Nittany Lions battle the West Virginia Mountaineers. Big Ten Saturday night. Boy, the debut. If the graphics package and the presentation of that Notre Dame game meant anything, I'm pretty excited, I think, for Big Ten Saturday night. What do we got here? Holy, Michigan State, 122-9 total yards this quarter. Well, it's safe to say that Sparty turned it around, and they maybe started off a little bit slow, but yeah, they've certainly turned it around, which is great for the Big Ten, great for Michigan State. Okay, so very excited about that. All right, folks, let's see. We talked about Michigan. Maryland against Townsend. Maryland wins by 60. I'm going to quickly talk Rutgers and Northwestern here. Man, both these teams need to find a way to win. They need to find a way to win this football game because the loser of this game can pretty much, I think the loser of Rutgers and Northwestern can kiss bowl eligibility goodbye. I firmly believe that here going forward. So it's going to be I have no idea which way this is going to go. Northwestern brings in a new quarterback that could be decent. Cam Porter, Rutgers has a good defense. How's Gavin Wimsatt going to do? I think there's a lot of different things for both the Rutgers Scarlet Knights and the Northwestern Wildcats. Could be fun on a Sunday afternoon. That one might deserve a reaction video as well. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming along for the ride here on the live stream here tonight. Just wanted to give my reaction to Nebraska and that Minnesota game. That was an entertaining game from last night. That was a fun one to watch, no question about that. But it's going to be a great week one of college football here in the Big Ten Conference and all throughout the country. I want to thank our new members, Dallas and John. Once again, hit that join button if you want to be a part of the Big Ten TED Champions Club. I want to thank Kane Rob also for joining me here tonight as well to talk about all things Minnesota Golden Gophers. All right, it is finally here. Big Ten college football is finally back. I'll have you updated the next time I go live. But until then, I'm Big Ten Ted. We will see you in the next one.